Twilight Syndrome. I've previously taken you through the first two games in the series, the Twilight Syndrome duology. At the end of the second game, we learn that the trio's series of adventures have been partially orchestrated by some kind of entity, why they were brought here, and why Mika, the airhead of the trio, is the only one that remembers their old world and their past lives. Well, I suppose we'll have to dive in to find out. So sit back and relax and let me, for probably the first time in English, take you on a journey through Moonlight Syndrome. Mika is walking down a street and she senses a gust of wind and worries that someone might be able to see her panties, and then comments that something smells. She catches up with Yukari and Chisato and says that something has happened. Yukari asks if some creep is stalking her, and Mika says it's nothing that dramatic, but that there was a gust of wind and a smell. Chisato says that she might have been pranked by a fairy, since a weird smell is a sign of getting sprayed with fairy dust. Chisato then loses her train of thought and then randomly just walks off. Yukari yells at her to wait and then runs after her, and Mika is left wondering what happens when people are sprayed with fairy dust. Later, we see her walking in the moonlight, still wondering what happens to people who are sprayed with fairy dust and wondering what was up with Chisato. She then runs into Ryo, who asks if she doesn't remember, and she responds by asking him if he's some kind of creep and says that he should stay away from her. She tries to run off, but Ryo shouts something that makes her turn around, but when she turns back to talk to him, he's gone. Later, she runs into Chisato, and Chisato is covered in blood. Chisato says that she has something to take care of. Mika says that her apartment is just nearby, and Chisato responds that she doesn't need to go home anymore. Mika asks her what she means by that, and Chisato says that it's gonna be alright. She doesn't need to worry. Mika begins yelling, asking her what she did, and Chisato tells her to listen to her. She did it for her. Her family was in the way. Mika begs her to stop, but Chisato doesn't stop. She says that Mika's family cried, wept and screamed and struggled, and that it was all very pathetic, that they looked like idiots, and that she doesn't think Mika is a nuisance like they do. Mika then attacks Chisato and stabs her, exclaiming that she is a nuisance to her. She's then back in the moonlight, and Ryo assures her that he didn't do any of this. He's just watching, and he says that they will meet again. Then a phone rings. It was just a dream. It's Arisa, the girl she made plans with the other day. Arisa asks Mika where she is, and Mika tells her that she's sorry and that she overslept and that she's gonna get dressed and go meet up with her. Arisa tells her to hurry and that she owes her lunch. Mika gets stressed and tells her mother that she'll be heading out, and she exits her apartment building and runs down the stairs and bumps into Aramata, who records her progress and wishes her a wonderful journey. As Mika is walking down the street, she hears someone behind her, and she fights the urge to turn around. She loses the fight, however, and when she finally does turn around, there is a man with a dog, and the dog is growling. The man tells the dog to calm down and asks Mika if she is okay, and she says that she is, and then continues on her way. As she's walking down the street, she feels like everyone is staring at her, and a homeless man asks her what she's doing, and he wants to go with her, but she ignores him and continues on. Another man accosts her and groans and moans and says that she's a very cute high schooler, and asks what high school she goes to, and asks for her phone number and lets her know that he is very loaded and that he can treat her nice. She tries to ignore him, but he says she shouldn't make him mad and then tells her that he's just joking. He says that he can't contain himself and that they should go on a date. Mika, sensing that she should play along, asks him where they should go, and he says to the arcade, and that she won't be able to resist him after they have gone to the arcade. The pervert says that he is a famous game developer and starts telling her about all the awesome and famous games he's made. Mika notices that he's just talking to himself, not really interested in what she has to say, or how she even really reacts to what he's saying. She then tries to kick him in the balls, but he deflects the kick, and she tries to say that she's sorry and that she wasn't trying anything. He responds that he's bored with her now. and then she kicks him again, and this time the kick lands right in his groin and he gets all the wind knocked out of him and falls to the floor while groaning in pain. Mika tells him not to mess with people like that and then continues on her way. A smoking woman sings to herself and makes eye contact with Mika and asks her if she's seen her baby, and for whatever reason she looks like the woman who set herself and Sumio on fire at the club. Mika says that she hasn't seen a girl and that she's very sorry but that she has to go. The woman gets agitated and won't let her leave, but then she realizes that she can't recall the name of her baby. Mika tries to tell her that she really has to leave, and the woman just keeps talking to herself about her baby and how she doesn't remember her name, and asks Mika if she knows it. Mika says that her name is Mika and that she doesn't know what the lady's baby's name is. The lady says yeah, it's Mika, and that she's a lovely child. Mika thinks it's a bit of a weird coincidence, and the woman thanks her for helping her remember. Freaked out a little bit, Mika breaks into a full sprint and then runs off. Meanwhile, Ryo is somewhere in the crowd attempting to follow Mika for whatever reason, but he can't spot her. Mika is weirded out by how strange everyone is acting, and she senses that someone is following her, but when she turns around, there is no one there. She continues on, but senses that someone is definitely following her this time. She yells out asking who is there, but there is no response, and she continues. She decides to make a run for it and finally reaches the subway station. She gets on the train and gets off at the stop near the shopping district, and then she begins looking for Arisa. She makes it to the store and Arisa cheerfully greets her. Mika apologizes and says that something weird happened, but Arisa ignores her and asks her to hold her bags as punishment for being late. Mika asks where Rumi is, and Arisa says that she hasn't seen her since she walked off. But not to worry, Rumi, she likes to do things at her own pace. Mika wants to go look for her to make sure that she is safe, which makes Arisa scream in anger since she's waited for her for so long. But Mika tells her that they will still totally do lunch and that she'll pay, and that Arisa can even have crepes. Arisa says fine, and Mika starts looking for Rumi. She finds her in the record store and apologizes for being late, and Rumi says it's fine, it's not like she's ever on time anyways, and that she found a great collection of records while she waited anyways. Mika and Rumi head to the cafe where Mika told Arisa to wait, but she's not there. Mika tells Rumi that they should split up and look for her, but Rumi doesn't really see why they should bother looking for that idiot kid. Mika tries to lecture Rumi about friendship, but Rumi says that Mika expects too much from people and that people don't really care for each other. Mika then says that she has a great friendship with Yukari and Chisato, but Rumi says that she doesn't really see it as a great friendship, since they never hang out outside of their little investigations, and they don't even go on those anymore. During the conversation, Rumi's brother's Sumio's death is brought up, and the conversation ends with Rumi walking off. Mika decides to go look for Arisa on her own, and she bumps into Yayoi, who tells Mika that she's Chisato's younger sister, which surprises Mika, but Yayoi, picking up on this, says that they don't live together, so that's why she's never been around, which doesn't quite explain why Chisato has never mentioned her. Mika comments that she's quite different from her sister, and Yayoi says that she doesn't understand her sister's compassion for others, to which Mika replies that Yayoi seems like a bit of a jerk and asks her what she's doing here anyways. Yayoi says that Arisa asked her to go look for Mika and that they should go and meet with her. Mika, she hesitates for a moment, but then she follows Yayoi. But then Yayoi just suddenly disappears, and when Mika turns around to look for her, the creep that was following her before is right behind her, and she runs away. As she's running, she bumps into Yayoi and asks her what the hell she's doing and why she is like this and why she didn't help her. Yayoi says that Mika doesn't understand, but that she will in time, and then tells her that they should go see Arisa. Yayoi walks off, and when Mika heads in the same direction, the man from before comes charging at her, and then a scream is heard. Ryo, presumably looking for Mika, knowing what's about to happen, bumps into Yayoi, and she tells him that she knows that she's here to protect Mika. Ryo yells at her to tell where she is, and Yayoi says that there was someone that Mika wanted to meet, so she took her to meet them. Ryo insists that Yayoi take him to Mika, and she agrees. And this is where we need to press pause and address something. See, this here is a French hot dog. Contrary to what its name would have you believe, it's not actually from France. is from Denmark. We just often like to name things to honor places or people that inspired the creation of the thing. And the creator of the French hot dog was inspired to make the French hot dog when he was holidaying in, you guessed it, France. Somewhere back in the 1800 whatever times. You're very confused right now, but trust me, we are going somewhere with this. There are many conflicting stories of the origin of the French hot dog, and disagreements about just how it came to be. And it's not just because the creator told many conflicting stories, no. He just didn't tell a very comprehensive story about how the French hot dog was made. He left behind notes, and those notes were interpreted by different people, and they drew different conclusions. And in Moonlight Syndrome, there are these things that I call, well, French hot dog moments. And we're about to be exposed to our very first one. When a mommy French hot dog bread and a daddy sausage love each other very much, they're inserted into each other consensually and lovingly. And in late 90s Japan, the country had just about begun having the conversation about sausages inserting themselves into French hot dog breads, whether or not the French hot dog bread wants them to or not. And Moonlight Syndrome being a reflection of Japanese society in the 90s at its peak, allude to that conversation in certain scenes, or at least can be interpreted as alluding to that in certain scenes. It is not personally my interpretation that these scenes depict sausages forcibly inserting themselves into French hot dog breads. I think what's happening on screen is more esoteric and metaphorical. But some people disagree with me, and that is fine. But now you know my interpretation of these scenes. Anyways, let's get back to a sausage trying to, with a French hot dog bread. Mika wakes up in a dark room and we see a creepy man hover over her while making noises. But then Chisato and Yukari burst into the room and rescue her. Later, the trio is standing outside and Mika thanks both of them for saving her, and Chisato tells her that they'll always be there for each other and that her and Yukari will always be there to protect her. They then turn their attention to a police car driving off, carrying off the pervert. While it's en route, something happens, and we see the pervert covered in blood, and the cops exclaiming that they can't believe he was able to do that. It looks like he just bit off his own tongue. A little later, Ryo is making his way through a crowd of people, and he enters a back room, and he sees Yayoi resting on a couch with her head in the lap of the boy with the silver hair. Ryo yells that he will never forgive either of them, and they respond by telling him that his attempts to do what he's doing, they're futile and he will fail, and they will laugh at him.